Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to Inappropriate Radio. It's your host, Tashana. Let's get into this. So, hi guys. Happy New Year. I think I said that already. We're not gonna do this all week. Alright, 2024, new day. Let's just keep it moving. I'm kidding, I'm joking. But yeah, so, but not really. Now, if you all have been following along, then you know that we have been going through some strenuous research. Okay, we've been doing a lot of research on spacecraft shuttles and interactions with aliens, right? And we're comparing the dates that we get, the reported dates anyway, to the cycles, right? The movement of the cycles. We've talked about that. You definitely have to go back a few segments, or you can just easily Google it, right? But what we're doing here is just making a connection, right? Bringing everything back around full circle. So, alright, we started going over dates, right? I wanted to have like a foundation for the conversation before we just started spewing out all these different dates. So first we started looking up birth dates of influential people, whether they are scientists, philosophers, it doesn't matter, entertainers, right? If these are people who had a very large following of people and they left a mark after they passed away, we consider their date of birth, right? And then we also consider the location. We're going to be using the coordinates as another point, right? Also, we've decided to today add to the conversation. Oh, before I get to that, we said yesterday that we were going to be adding inventions, right? The dates of inventions and a few other things, like some days when laws are passed, right? We get these laws that are written in these different bills. We're looking at who's signing them in and what is actually going on, right? And we're also going to be looking at, I think I named all of them. If I didn't, I'm sorry. But today we are adding the size of the area to the conversation. So what I did was I looked up important days, okay? Important days in history, and then I looked up important days in the world, okay? Now, we needed something to compare this to. So, traumatic weather events. That was also what we were comparing it against, okay? What we're doing is we're looking at these different cycles, right? So we have this, just as a little recap, we have this 225 to 250 million year cycle, right? And then we have all these other cycles that fall under that cycle. So this is where those different timelines and, whatever comes in. Okay. Right now, we are in the middle of moving into our 25th cycle. Scientists have projected us to have moved into the cycle in 2025, but they are assuming that anywhere from now until the summer, around July of this year, for us to be moving into the cycle. This particular cycle is based off the amount of sunspots that are observed on the sun's surface. Okay, fast forward. We have these cycles, right, that go 11, 22, 33. This 33-year cycle is when we go through this activation of the wormhole. The wormhole is when we can travel back and forth. It's 3 different types. We'll get into that, or you can just look up the segment. We'll get into that later. But the point that I'm making is that we started looking up days now, right, that are important. So Normandy, and not Normandy and Western, because I thought about that. God is so funny. I thought about that too, but Normandy, right, in France, it is a location. And yes, we did look up the coordinates, and to my surprise, well, not to my surprise, although the coordinates didn't have an 11, because we talked about how some numbers involving these dates are very consistent. So far, 11 is most consistent out of all, right? I'm seeing 4, 12, 13, 14, and 15 popping up a lot. But the 11 is crazy. It's very consistent. So moving forward, we looked into the coordinates, and yeah, even though the coordinates didn't have an 11, the square mile did, right? The area that was attacked was 11,825 square miles. Now this area is Normandy, right? This is a region in France. This is considered to be the day that is most important and the greatest day in history. Both of these popped up for history because I looked up the greatest day in history and the most important day in history, and both of these had the same finding, which was when the Nazis, the German Nazis, basically got overthrown. This marked the beginning of the ending of World War II. So this is why it would be considered one of the most important days, because they believe that it would have gone on. It would have still been going on. Probably until today, right? We don't know. Thank God for that. But General Eisenhower, Mr. Dwight Eisenhower, he is the one who called this war, born in Texas, so not shocked, right? 10/14/1890 is his date of birth, and he died in Washington, D.C., 3/25/1969. So even if you look at the energy that he was born into, we talked about astrology, and we talked about how locational astrology is also instrumental and has an effect on a person's personality and their overall just energy and aura. You have to go back to that. It's a few months ago, but basically same thing. The coordinates are coming up in these numbers. They carry a particular vibration, and some of these locations just have a history of certain events and energy, okay? If you know anything about Texas or the Midwest, period, then you already know. And then to pass in Washington, D.C. is also like a thing, right? He was the president. So this is why it started getting important for us to pay attention to the size, because the size of the area, well, I would assume would be important because the spacecrafts would need an open large area to land, right? So places like Roswell and other places like, Texas or whatever, they have a large enough area that would be crucial for the landing of these space shuttles, okay? Hence the reason of the square mile, the coordinates. These are areas that are also isolated and secluded, okay? Most of these places are near large bodies of water, large bedrocks, different areas where there's not a lot of suspected life, right? Well, they know we're here, but I'm saying they have a history history of rich energy. Water is rich energy. Bedrock is rich energy, right? This is minerals. These are areas where minerals are abundant. So this is why, it became a thing. So some other days that popped up, they didn't really have dates. They had years. The Revolution in America from 1775 to 1783. The discovery of DNA, 1869. The Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975. That's a long war. So you see, can you imagine us going into a war right now, and then that war lasting up until 2044? That would be crazy, right? So that makes sense why it would be an important thing, okay, as far as history is concerned. But then that got me into thinking how our history can be manipulated. And then it took me back to 1752, when no people were reported to have died from September 3rd until the 13th. This was the same exact year that the calendars were changed, okay, from Julian to Gregorian. And this is where New Year became January 1st. And it was no longer March 25th, okay? All of this stuff is so crazy because I seen a clip. Please don't, I'm not quoting anything. I don't even know the verse, but it was a passage from the Bible, and it was basically explaining why and how spring is actually when the new year comes. When the spring comes in, the new year, this is the new year starting. And if you think about it, the cold is when things die. It's when things hibernate, things slow down, things start to change. I mean, we even shed skin, right? So it makes sense for spring to be the beginning, because that would mean that winter is the end, right? So far, a lot of the research we have been doing, like I said, I've been seeing the number 11 a lot. I'm trying to organize it in a way where I'm not just rambling on and I could just get to the point without us just being confused. I wanted to make sense, so that's why I'm bringing up a lot of the points that are already made up to connect the dots to the new information. And as we stumble upon new information, we'll make those points so it can further make sense. And I'm sure we'll be adding new topics to, the conversation, just to compare it against the dates of the landings and the interactions that are at least reported. We know a lot of this stuff is classified information. We're not going to necessarily get the real deal, right? We're not going to really get the 100% everything, but at least if we have a foundation and then we have our own understanding of the things we know and we have observed, and then we can compare that to whatever we may come across. Hopefully you'll be using your spiritual gifts and your discernment to determine what is fake, what is real. A lot of this stuff, has been considered to be in the category of a hoax. We don't know. We do our own research here, right? But yeah, that's pretty much it. We're going to keep going. I would definitely like to start finding books, because as we know, the area where you are is going to determine what comes up into your engine search, right? But I'm going to end it there. I do love y'all. I hope y'all have been getting on with y'all New Year's solutions, not resolutions. Hope y'all been drinking y'all water, eating y'all fruit and vegetables, and sipping on your own tea because it is free. All right. Love y'all. Peace.